Dear ladies and gentlemen, please welcome honorable guests of the Astana Economic Forum. The first President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Елбасы Nursultan Nazarbayev. The President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kasım-Jomart Tokayev.
While trying to save the planet, people forget what they're saving it for. Besides getting material values, the new generation is evaluating its impact on the ecosystem. The goals and attitudes are changing towards the environment, along with the attitude of people towards themselves. The concept of personal space begins with the inclusion of cybersecurity. The world needs guarantee for personal data protection. Many lines are getting blurred in the era of merging organic and technology. The future trends in jobs and distribution of human labor are challenging the traditional model of labor market. What is the role of machines, and how does the knowledge economy transform the human economy? The value of creativity and critical thinking is on the rise. According to World Economic Forum reports, the world has developed only 62% of the human potential in terms of acquiring new knowledge and its productive use, and that rate will continue rising. About 70% of the world's population will live in cities by 2050. The success of economies, countries, and continents will now depend on the synergy of the man and his city. What will the future smart cities be like, and what will affect the economy? Large megapolises will become the center of attraction for economies. Each of them will have to find its own niche. The youngest capital of the world, the city of Nur-Sultan, that is located at the crossroads of the trade routes, becomes the transport and logistics hub for Eurasia that connects the north with the south, the west with the east. This city has become a recognizable venue for the most significant world events, peace negotiations, the conclusion of trade agreements, as well as international events such as Expo 2017 and the Asian Games. Within the last 12 years, the Astana Economic Forum has become a recognized global platform for discussion of changing global trends with the participation of leading analysts and experts. Kazakhstan follows the course set by the first president, Nursultan Nazarbayev, to enter the top 30 most developed countries in the world. Traditionally, at the forum, the first president of Kazakhstan sets clear goals for the development of the country. At the meeting site, the best world experts offer non-standard and effective solutions to global world issues. G8, G20, UN OSCE, and other global associations take into account those opinions while making their decisions. The theme of the 12th Astana Economic Forum is Inspiring Growth, People, Cities, Economies. On May 16th and 17th of 2019, delegates meet at the youngest capital of the world, Nur-Sultan.
Distinguished Mr. First President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, distinguished Mr. President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, dear guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the heart of Eurasia, to the plenary session of the Astana Economic Forum. Your Excellency, distinguished Yelbasa, let me thank you for the invitation to take part in the forum dedicated to the paramount issues of global development. This year commemorates 25 years of Eurasian integration. Kazakhstan, located at the juncture of Europe and Asia, plays a significant role in the stability of Eurasia, acting as a bridge and a hub of politics, economy, and trade. Today, the term Greater Eurasia, geographically encompassing the area from Lisbon to Vladivostok, has become quite a hot topic of discussion. That's why the unique platform of the Astana Economic Forum plays an important role in exploring workable solutions to global challenges. For 11 years now, the Astana Economic Forum has brought together participants from more than 100 countries, including leaders in science, business, global corporations, politics, and the world's leading media outlets. Today, the future of global economic growth is not without the clouds. The world economy is forecast to undergo a slowdown in the face of tightened global financing conditions, moderated industrial productions, intensified trade tensions, and significant financial market stress experienced by some large emerging market and developing economies. Against this backdrop, the forum will explore not only new drivers of growth, but also ways to mitigate negative systemic factors and to rethink the essence of growth per se and define key factors critical for its future resilience. In short, the challenge is how to ensure stable and inclusive growth. In the discussions at the forum, there are three factors that matter most. The first factor is the people, or human capital, being the most valuable resource and driver of growth. It's necessary to revisit the approaches to encouraging the human potential and to fully value intellectual and creative potential of people. So in today's world, only 62% of human capital is used in terms of acquiring new knowledge and putting it into use. 62%. The second pillar is the development of cities as the new epicenters of economic growth. Today, cities account for the production of 80% of global GDP and the registration of 80% of patents. By 2050, more than 2/3 of the global population will be living in cities. This will shift the focus from the economies of countries to economies of cities and will change the factors that drive growth. And third is the change in the character of the economy itself. The fourth industrial revolution brings drastic changes to production, consumption, and business models of global economy, creates new requirements for global value chains, national institutions, and labor markets. Yet, the fourth industrial revolution is more than just a change driven by technological progress. It is an unprecedented opportunity for political leaders, decision makers, experts, scholars, entrepreneurs, and people, regardless of nationality or wealth, to tap onto the rich potential of technological progress to build an inclusive, human-centered future. Now, it is a great honor and privilege for me to present our distinguished speakers. His Excellency, the First President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Yelbazar Nursultan Nazarbayev. His Excellency Armen Sarkisyan, the President of the Republic of Armenia. His Excellency Mamuka Baktadze, the Prime Minister of Georgia. Madame Christine Lagarde, the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. The distinguished Hermann Gref, Chief Executive Officer, Chairman of the Executive Board of Sberbank. The distinguished Risto Silasma, Chair of the Board of Directors of Nokia Corporation. And last but not least, the distinguished Paul Romer, Nobel Prize Laureate in Economic Sciences. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to give the floor to His Excellency, the First President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Yelbazar Nursultan Nazarbayev. Mr. President, I invite you to the speaker's stand.
Dear participants to the forum, dear guests, welcome to the 12th meeting of the Astana Economic Forum. I express my words of gratitude to the heads of state, the heads of international organizations, representatives of large international companies, experts and scholars. I would like to express the words of gratitude to all the participants that came here based on our invitation, the guests of our conference, and I would like to greet you and wish successful activities on this forum. Dear friends, our regular meetings has become a good tradition, and I very much value the trustful atmosphere that has formed on this platform. In 2008, I initiated this kind of forum, and it became a regular one, and today we have the 12th forum of this kind. Every time we discuss the most relevant issues of the global as well as regional nature. Those are strategic issues that are going to influence the development of the society for the coming years. Within those years, we did discuss a wide range of issues, including the projects of G-Global, the ecological issues, the alleviation of poverty, development of human capital, and new energy. In the last year, we hosted the Global Challenges Summit. On the platform of the forum, we hosted 2 anti-crisis conferences that hosted under the aegis of the General Assembly of the UN. In general, many of the recommendations and conclusions that were discussed here helped Kazakhstan to timely react to the global challenges and successfully overcome difficulties, and our notions and considerations, I believe, were used in other regions as well. You are aware that our model of developing, despite all the challenges and forecasts, already proved its sustainability and efficiency. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan, one of the 15 Soviet countries, started with scratch zero with one of the worst beginning conditions in comparison to all of our neighbors. And despite of that, we put forward the ambitious goals in front of us, and we achieved them. You are aware of that. We entered the top 50 most developed countries of the world and top 30 leading countries in terms of doing business. Our country has drawn more than $320 billion of foreign direct investments. Kazakhstan is a definite leader in that indicator in the region. I highly value the trust of our partners, our friendly states, as well as foreign investors that trusted and are trusting Kazakhstan nowadays as well, and we are very much value that. Such a pragmatic notion of optimism, I believe, is the important indicator of the trust in the political and economic system of Kazakhstan. Our country has become one of the most respected members of the world community within the years of independence. We had the increase of economy by 21 times, and the country decreased the poverty from 40 down to very low level, and we are going to strengthen that. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan has been defined as a key state body for foreign direct investments attractions. Our embassies across the globe are going to be one-stop destinations for investors who would like to work in Kazakhstan. We continue the activities to enter the top 30 most developed countries of the world. The strategy adopted for developing the country until 2050, the target there is to enter the top 30 most developed countries. All of our strategies and programs are targeting that single aim, and all Kazakhstan works for that. We had the focus to introduce the life quality standards of the OECD countries, and we implemented a plan of the nation for implementing the 5 institutional reforms consisting of 100 steps, and we steadily are implementing that. That document had the high value at the Astana Economic Forum in particular. We started the 3rd modernization, and we implement large-scale infrastructure and industrial programs. The industrial program in particular that provides with alternative economy in the country rich with natural resources, energy resources. Within 6 years of the program, we established 130 state-of-the-art enterprises, and we provide with the exclusive incentives for the investors who come for implementing that program. Second, that's our activities in terms of the infrastructure development. actively supporting the idea of one belt, one road. Kazakhstan is at the very center of this Silk Road, and through us we have 6 railroad and 11 automobile roads getting from Asia through Kazakhstan to Europe, and through Kazakhstan to the Persian Gulf and all other countries as well. Dear friends, this year the topic of the forum is the inspiring growth, people, cities, economies that was taken into account the modern trends, and Kazakhstan is also a part of those processes. It is only from the first glimpse the economic development in the world looks stable, but behind that there are fundamental risks as well as disproportions hidden. The world growth rate decreased from the forecast of 3.9% down to 3.6%. The IMF forecast to have even lower decreases to 3.3 in 2019. That's why in the search of new ways for developing the country, the countries are forced to strengthen the struggle for the current markets, often using non-market competition measures. We, all of us, see the escalation of the tensions between the United States, China, Europe, the macroeconomic stress in the developing countries, the growth of the political populism, the sanctions counteracting, especially is observable between Russia and the US. If we to add also the break in terms of the nuclear security agreements as well as conventional weapons as well as their accumulation that's close to the arms race, it becomes obvious that that's an alarming situation. No one would benefit that.
The world economy, according to various estimates, will lose roughly about 0.7, 0.8 of its growth. And this is the reason for which there is a global economic and technological change that is taking place now in the world. It brings a lot of possibilities and challenges at the same time. And today I would like to share my vision with you of how we are going to form, the world will be formed in the nearest future. For the last 30 years, I was the first president of the Republic of Kazakhstan, starting the Soviet period, and I keep in very close touch with all political leaders of the world, and I have already accumulated some experience. Number one is the growth of population is no longer playing the key role in the growth of the national economies, and the productivity of labor becomes the main driving force. During the last 50 years, only 1/3 of the GDP growth in developed countries was received from the natural growth of the population. And the rest of it was resulting from the labor productivity. And the world experts are sure that the countries which can drastically increase this indicator will be competitive in the upcoming century. And the potential of labor productivity growth may constitute not less than 2% per annum in the upcoming decade, and about 60% of the possibilities of the labor productivity growth will be predetermined by digital technologies. Number two, digital transformation is changing the face of the economic development, and now everything is predetermined by the digital and highly technological companies such as Google, Apple, Amazon, and in Senhua, actually forcing out the traditional industrial and investment large corporations, and their accumulated value represents roughly about $3.7 trillion, which is comparable with GDP of such countries as Germany. Germany, for example, has a GDP of 3.6 trillion. And penetration of new technologies in the area of traditional trade has significantly increased its efficiency. According to the forecast, if there will not be any negative factors such as trade wars, for example, the potential of the world trade thanks to digitalization will represent roughly about 2% of the annual growth by 2030. Number three, there is also growing demand to the human capital, and there is is also a transformation in the educational process. Mobile and creative human capital is a key factor in the success of the majority of economies, and the quality of human capital predetermines between 10 to 30% of the GDP level per capita among various countries. Thanks to the development and availability, accessibility of the technologies, 50% of the productive labor time can be automated. Therefore, by 2030, roughly about 375 million people all over the world, and this represents about 14% of the global labor force, will have to be retrained and change their professions. In addition, the introduction of new technologies will make some professions no longer in need, and at the same time it will result in the appearance of new professions. Even in the countries with low or medium income, many people work in professions about which we didn't even hear some 30 years ago. Number 4, as it has already been stated by our moderator, the cities play a very significant role in the economic development, and their influence is only going to grow. And the people now take the decisions on where it will be better for them to live, and therefore they are creating the points of growth which are concentrated in metropolis, and roughly about 2 billion people, or 55% of the total population in the world live in the cities. And by 2050, the urban population will be doubled, which means that 7 out of 10 people in the world will be residing in the cities. And there will be a lot of competition between the cities. Even now, the cities generate roughly about 80% of the global GDP, whereas urbanization can also support sustainable growth if it takes place thanks to the introduction of innovations and digitalization. And Kazakhstan is also keeping a pace with the global trend, and here probably we are trying to even outpace this situation. We have roughly about 40% of the rural population, but 20% of them still live and work in the cities. Our cities continue growing. In the capital of Kazakhstan, which turned from a provincial town with a population of 180,000 people, has already reached 1 million of population. The largest cities of Kazakhstan is Almaty, Shymkent is another one, and there are 2 more cities which will also reach the same level. And they will be the centers of gravity, attracting technologies and people, and the future success of our cities will be the key factor of competitiveness of Kazakhstan in the global market. Distinguished participants of the forum, we again meet here during very difficult and tough times, because there is a lot of uncertainty of political and economic situation in some large economies, and the growth of populism is becoming the trend of today. And you see the economic horizons are growing very narrow, and therefore we can overcome these difficulties under the auspices of such forums as UNO, G20, and other organizations. And it's high time for us to start joint discussions and joint management and control over the situation. And as I have already proposed during the forum in One Belt, One Road in Beijing, we can actually develop 3 dialogues. Number 1 is between USA, Russia, China, and the European Union. And I believe that these are the largest economies and territories, and a lot depends on them. The fates of mankind depend on them. It always used to be like this, because the largest countries were always assuming responsibility towards the world, just like after the First World War, when the League of Nations was established, and after the Second World War, when the UNO was established. Any type of opposition is usually resolved through negotiations. Number 2, on the level of Eurasia, the unification and integration of the Organization on Security and Cooperation in Europe and Shanghai Cooperation Organization could also get integrated and create a common safe space. And number 3 is The investment dialogue between Eurasian Economic Union, European Union and Shanghai Cooperation Organization and ASEAN, and such a huge economic integration is of paramount importance for everybody. As you know, Kazakhstan more than once served as a very efficient platform to resolve various problems in spite of use of our first capital. Nevertheless, we conducted here the summit of OSCE, the summit of Islamic States, and you know that there are 56, 57 countries representing them, and the summit of the world religions. Astana Economic Forum, and my initiative, G Global, may become a platform for such dialogues, and the capital of our country can become the venue for such countries and their leaders. The establishment in the framework of Astana Economic Forum of a separate platform, G Global Dialogue, Big Eurasia, and here the representatives of big corporations and businesses and various associations and unions, including European Economic Union, SCO, ASEAN, could discuss various issues of integration. And the discrepancies between the countries are barriers to pragmatic economic interaction. And finally, it is very important to shift from unproductive sanction regime to a constructive dialogue between the leaders of global countries. And in connection with this, there is high time for us to start thinking about finding the way out from the global economic crisis between USA, European Union and China and USA, and I'm trying to discuss with the leaders of these countries, and there is in general a good understanding of this problem. And I believe that we really have to start this work with the key brain centers, and again I would like to underscore that we can actually provide as a platform for dialogue our capital. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now today's Astana Economic Forum has a particular significance because it is conducted during a historically important period of time in Kazakhstan. As you know, here I'm in front of you not as the president of the country. For the sake of interests of our peoples of Kazakhstan and the country, I decided to voluntarily quit my position of the president, and during the independence we achieved very good results because Kazakhstan is now recognizable on the map of the world. It has become a very reputable international country because we initiated the anti-nuclear initiatives because we were the first to close down the biggest nuclear test range in Semipalatinsk, and we decided to ban the fourth biggest in the world nuclear potential. And this is the reason for which, for the first ever time in the modern history of our country, acting in full compliance with the constitution of our country in a very quiet and peaceful situation, using democratic ways, we are transferring the power. And I'm very grateful to the heads of states from various countries of the world who write to me, who talk to me and support my decision. And during this new time, Kazakhstan understands and realizes its strategic objectives and tasks and the need to have succession of the strategy. And during the elections, which will be conducted in less than 1 month, will also be supporting sustainable development of the country. During the extraordinary meeting of Nuratan Party, I initiated the candidacy of Kassym-Jomart Tokayev to be elected as the president of our country because I believe that he is the most fit for such title, and he will be able to secure succession of our strategy. And myself, as the leader of the nation, I maintain my position in the Security Council, and I will continue to develop the country, including its domestic policy, security and international international policy, which is very important, especially when all the global economic development processes are too globalized. And my work will be to support the activities of the new president and to make sure that the transit of power will take place in a very calm environment and to continue the work. Therefore, our dear friends, the social well-being, calmness and certainty in the future for every citizen used to be and remain to be our main priority. And I don't have any doubt that every idea that is going to be expressed here will facilitate the resolution of the most topical problems of the global economy and policies. And I would like to thank you for your interest, and I would like also to wish to all the speakers a lot of success and very good health.
Your Excellency, Mr. First President, thank you for sharing your vision of inspiring growth. Now, before we continue, I have to apologize because I somehow, I don't know why, I left out one of our distinguished speakers here on the panel, His Excellency, the Vice Premier of the People's Republic of China, Mr. Han Zheng. I think this happens sometimes when you... Yes, thank you very much. This happens when you read without your reading glasses on, so I apologize. Now, let's move to the speeches of our distinguished panelists, and I'm happy to pass the floor now first to His Excellency, Mr. Han Zheng from China, who started his career as a line party worker in 1975 and rose to be the mayor of Shanghai in the period of 2003 to 2012, and was then appointed as the first Vice Premier of the People's Republic of China in 2018. I'm sure that his speech by Mr. Han Zheng as a decision maker, as a politician with the experience of working at central and regional levels, will make for a substantial contribution to our discussion. Mr. Han Zheng, the speaker's stand is yours.
尊敬的纳扎尔巴耶夫首任总统，尊敬的卡达耶夫总统，尊敬的各位来宾、女士们、先生们、朋友们，大家上午好。很高兴来到美丽的努尔苏丹，出席第12届阿斯塔纳经济论坛，同各位嘉宾共商世界经济发展的大计。
And issues of the global economy development. In 2018, the first president, Elbasi Mr. Nazarbayev, being the far-sighted and knowledgeable politician, initiated the Astana Economic Forum. During the last 11 years, this forum has gained the reputation of an extremely important platform where the promising and constructive cooperation plans are being developed to address the economic, financial and social challenges of the global scope, and has already become the business card of the city in the international arena. I would like to take this advantage and express my great respect to the first President Nazarbayev, who was the initiator of the forum, and also express recognition to high appreciation of to the government for the high level of the forum. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of the forum is inspiring growth, people, cities and economies. This is a relevant topic not only for all of us, but also one of the key priorities in the agenda of sustainable development of UN, and also the key pillar that we are focused in our social and economic development. process. In China, 1.4 billion people population, which is the biggest human capital globally and the most significant breakthroughs in the set of development and promotion of the new urbanization model and great prospects of economic development have been significantly strengthened the role of China as the sustainable driver of the global economy and big market for the opportunities for all the countries. We are prepared to share those opportunities with you in the interests of joint development and common future to the benefit of the peoples of the countries, to bring happiness to the people of the world. In this regard, I propose as follows. Number one, we need to altogether ensure sustainable global economic growth through open cooperation. In the world now, the irreversible trend to open collaboration, openness and reform is observed. Recently, in Beijing, the second International Cooperation Forum, One Belt, One Road, was completed with the topic with the joint initiatives of One Belt, One Road for the future cooperation. We, as a result, had 283 cooperation documents signed totaling $64 billion. The chairman of China, Xi Jinping, in his speech identified 5 key activities of China to enhance the openness and address the economic challenges of the global scope and to enhance the cooperation between all the countries. And this is actively supported by all the countries, and we are prepared to work together to support economic liberalization and economic globalization aimed at ensuring powerful, well-balanced, sustainable and inclusive growth. Secondly, protect the globe as a common home and ensure sustainable development. We should ensure well-balanced, harmonized development of humanity, resources and environment. This issue attracts a lot of attention from the international community. Starting from the 18th Union of CPC, the environmental civilization has become a comprehensive program of the country development. In the framework of construction of the beautiful China and protection of environment, the historical changes and comprehensive improvements have started. China is fighting decisively with poverty. 82 million people have gone away from poverty, and we are prepared together with you combat those problems, such as environmental problems of ocean pollution and protection of flora and fauna. And we are going to continue supporting the agenda for sustainable development for 2030 by UN and continue our responsible approach as a major country. Number 3, develop urbanization and together with you to identify the important role of urbanization in the modernization of the country. Starting from the openness policy implementation, China started a very wide-range urbanization process, and this resulted in inspiring outcomes in our development. In the current China, the new model of modernization has been successfully implemented, and we are prepared to actively collaborate with you to assist in economic development so as to define the role of urbanization in enhancing quality of life of people and use of resources and promotion of economic activity. We are prepared to be actively involved in the implementation of Smart City Initiative of Kazakhstan. Number 4, enhance new intensity to development of human capital and innovations. Innovations is driver number 1 in achieving the economic prosperity. China is implementing the development strategy through innovation, including the construction of innovative states. We are prepared to enhancing communication and collaboration in e-trade, digital economy, smart production, biotechnologies, and clean energy to create new jobs, more jobs, and more prosperity. Innovation, in essence, is to enhance human capital capacity. And in this regard, we are supposed to strengthen our collaboration in education and training highly qualified personnel for the implementation of the development strategy through innovations. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Kazakhstan is our friendly neighbor and our strategic partner. And it was right here where the initiative of the economic belt of the Silk Way was initiated. And our cooperation has always been quite dynamic. And we are common not only in the economic interest but also an indispensable fate. Our friendship has already brought some good results, and we have been always the vanguard in Central Asia, and we were the first ones to address the border point issues, and we turned the common border of 1,700 kilometers as the belt of friendship. And we were the first one to build the oil and gas pipelines together, and we are continuing our energy collaboration, and we were the first ones to establish the relations of the comprehensive strategic partnership with the advanced bilateral collaboration, and we were the first ones to start collaboration in production and investments. We have already approved 55 projects totaling $27 billion. And we were the first one who launched such important projects such as logistic base of Linyangan, the border center for the international cooperation Horgos, and the special economic union Horgos Eastern Gate. And all that has already facilitated the spatial collaboration between the countries. We are common in objectives and principles of development, and our strategies of development complement each other. Let's move ahead together to implementing the Chinese and Kazakhstani dreams together, and to contribute more to the development of big Eurasia and to support the economic prosperity all over the world. And I would like to wish all the participants of the forum big success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Han Zheng, for your inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, the Forum Days have coincided with the planning for the IMF Roundtable in the city of Nur-Sultan, which will bring together finance ministers and heads of central banks representing the region of Central Asia and Caucasus. The event will focus on measures of economic policy aimed at achieving inclusive growth. That topic that directly ascribes to the agenda of our discussion today. In this regard, and with this in mind, I would like to pass the floor to the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Ms. Christine Lagarde. You can use the stand over there. Madame Lagarde, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and I hope this particular podium is not only and exclusively reserved for women, because it would be not very well used today. Yelbasi Nazarbayev, President, Vice Premier, Prime Ministers, Excellencies and distinguished guests, salam and good morning. Thank you very much, Yelbasi Nazarbayev, for having us and greeting us to this year's forum. As Socrates would have said, accelerate slowly. But as the famous Kazakh poet would have said, Abay, while walking slowly, stride confidently. So today I would like to borrow on this idea, accelerate but slowly. Unfortunately, when I look at the global growth around the world, there is no slow motion than acceleration. And Yelbasi Nazarbayev, you have actually quoted our forecast for growth. And while there was about 75% of the world accelerating growth pace last year in 2018, unfortunately in 2019 we're seeing about 70% of global GDP slowing down that growth momentum. So I'm not suggesting that there is a recession in the wings, but it is certainly slowing down as compared with last year. From 3.6 last year, we forecast 3.3 global growth to hopefully go back to 3.6 next year, which, however, is predicated on no additional financial tightening and hopefully an alleviation of what we regard as the major risk to growth at the moment, which are the international tensions that we see in abundance between major players in the world, meaning particularly at the moment the United States and China. So while we expect in the next 6 months a global economy rebound, nothing indeed can be certain, and we very much hope that the tensions that flare and abound at the moment will be tamed by reason and your intermediacy maybe, Mr. President. Now, this part of the world clearly has a role to play, and we believe that throughout Caucasus and Central Asia, growth, which has indeed picked up and is not cruising at a 3.3% but at a 4.1%, will hopefully accelerate because it would be then closer to potential, which we believe is higher than current growth. And that growth to potential would actually be much better to raise living standards to the level of other emerging economies in Europe and Asia. So the challenge is clear. We need to increase growth to a higher plane, but we need to stride carefully yet confidently on that path. And to that end, we believe that good domestic policies are needed, that increased economic diversification is required, and that stronger international cooperation is at play. But most importantly, we need inclusive and sustainable growth that lifts up the prospects of women, young people, poor people, people living in the rural areas, and a growth that actually raises the expectations of future generations. Mr. Moderator, you've alluded to a meeting that I will have with all finance ministers and central bank governors on the occasion of this forum. We've also published on the occasion of this forum, I hope it can be seen very well, yes, promoting inclusive growth in the Caucasus and Central Asia, and that will be formidable reading for those of you who are interested in this prospect. Now, we see a path for that more inclusive growth in the region. But in addition to some of the points that you made, President Nazarbayev, and I was particularly attentive to your point about increasing the productivity in the region to at least 2%, which would be very welcome, I would like to mention 4 critical areas where there could be improvement. First of all, we believe that fiscal policy should balance debt concerns with critical initiatives in health, education, and infrastructure. All 3 actually conducive to increase productivity. And here the IMF will continue to support the region through technical assistance and capacity development programs, with the proposal to actually set up a training center in this region. Second, we believe that corruption needs to be addressed head-on in the region. Yes, I agree with you, yes. And we believe that 2019 is an opportune moment to provide increased transparency and foster more trust between citizens and governments. Third, women and other underrepresented groups can be empowered by continuing to eliminate legal and economic barriers. And I'm pleased to say that through the hard work of the government and private companies, female labor force participation in Kazakhstan is now at 65%, which is the highest in the region and a benchmark for every country in Central Asia. Fourth, and that actually dovetails on third and may be conducive to third, the financial sector should be sound and its services widely accessible. Only 45% of adults in the Caucasus and Central Asia countries have a banking account, 45%. Almost 20% lower than the average in other emerging markets. Furthermore, only 3% of citizens have mobile money accounts. Now, these numbers are a clear opportunity, and they reveal an incredible untapped resource for the region, and a resource that is environmentally sustainable and that can procure diversification from predominant activities that have something to do with extracting commodities from the soil. So, in addition to that, and you've alluded to that, Mr. President, if Central Asia can harness the power of fintech, as emerging economies in other regions have done, the potential gains for women, for young people, and for the poor are significant. Each of these principles is part of the toolkit the region needs in order to reach a higher plane of inclusive growth. And while this morning we are focusing on inclusive growth within countries, clearly the fact that you are all here assembled indicates that there is a lot of potential for growth between countries. When you look at the trade between countries in the region, we're hitting at about 10%, which is clearly significantly lower than what the potential could be. Within the European Union, that trade within the region is 60%. But that landscape of relatively limited trade is beginning to shift. In just the past year, there has been a surge of trade in the Kazakhstan-Uzbekistan border, and any of you who wants to ship goods between the two will probably have to stand in line and wait, because there are queues of trucks by the border. Again, digitalization will be of great use in that respect. New regional opportunities, which have been alluded to by the Vice Premier of China in the form of roads, railroads, electricity grids, are finally coming online. And last month, a Silk visa plan was announced to allow for easier travel between the nations of Central Asia. Now, these initiatives can clearly rebuild the Silk Road connections that once helped this part of the world become a hub for global trade and learning. And they can play a role in each country's journey to achieve more diversified, more sustainable, and more inclusive growth. So let me conclude. We believe at the IMF that this inclusive and sustainable growth is well within reach for the nations and all countries in the region. And we can actually draw inspirations from our surroundings. What surroundings, will you say? There's nothing very high around. Of course, we are in the steppes and the flatlands. But think of the famous Kazakh proverb. Kazakh hearts are like the steppes, wide, kind, and generous. If we all embrace that spirit, we can generate economic growth that will raise living standards and provide new chances for millions within the region. With that, I thank you very much for your attention. Rahmet.
Thank you, Madame Lagarde, for your thought-provoking speech. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key partners connected with Kazakhstan by close cultural and historical ties is the Republic of Armenia. The two countries cooperate fruitfully within the Eurasian Economic Union. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Armenia, Armen Sarkisyan, has a solid record in civil service, especially in the diplomatic sphere, where he represented the Republic of Armenia at the European Union. President Sarkisyan is also a scientist in the field of physics, astrophysics, computer modeling, political science, and economics. I now have the great honor to pass the floor to the President of the Republic of Armenia, Armen Sarkisyan.
Your Excellency, First President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, dear Nursultan Abishevich Nazarbayev, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great privilege and honor, and I think practically, I'm looking forward to be a part of this important summit and conference. I was honestly inspired with an introduction that was made by Mr. Grob and then later by the speech of President Nazarbayev, Madame Lagarde and Vice Prime Minister. And this encouraged me to put my hand into my pocket and take out my speech and read it. So I decided maybe it will be the best if I will just react to a couple of points that were raised here and to emphasize the importance of specific development locomotives that are going to run us in 21st century. Again, thanking presidents for inviting me for this conference, I would like to start with an important point which is called vision. It starts with a vision. Everything starts with a vision, with a dream. We are human. And I do remember early 90s when I first came to this place. It was a small town in the middle of Kazakhstan. Beautiful, more beautiful space rather than a city. But there was a dream, there was a vision, and that vision was created and then implemented by President Nazarbayev, a dream to have his country's capital city here. And only a couple of decades have passed. Look what happened to the dream and the vision. We're sitting in a wonderful city Nur Sultan, which in some sense, as you said, is the heart of Eurasia. I maybe will say, Mr. Moderator, maybe it is already the capital of Eurasia as well. So indeed, everything starts with a vision. And thank you, President Nazarbayev, for your vision and visionary leadership of Kazakhstan, but also for visionary leadership in the whole area of Eurasia. Now, what is our vision for the next 20 or 30 years globally? What sort of world would like to live? Would you like to live in a world which is separated? We would like to see a world with more and more walls of Berlin, or would like to see a world which is really global? I think if somebody is uncomfortable with the world globalization, I would use another word, globally integrated world. We are already in globally integrated world, and there is no way back. No way. And that started not 20 years ago. It has started hundreds of years ago when the first Silk Roads were built and people were trading from China through Kazakhstan and then through Uzbekistan, through Samarkand, Bukhara, through Caucasus, Armenia, going to Europe, to Marseille, and to further to Manchester. So the Silk Road and the globalization has started not now, it has started in Middle Ages. And we, Armenians, were a part of that. We were trading from Hong Kong up to Marseille. So that's something that I will come to that a bit later. So what is our vision for the next 20 and 30 years' time? In order to think about our vision in 20, 30 years' time, let's look back in 20, 30 years ago, where we were. We had these small gadgets that is controlling or it's all of our lives, from our family photos to the complete data and financial analysis? No, we didn't. So what's going to happen in 20, 30 years' time, when we are going to embrace really the artificial intelligence, which is going to completely change the way we run healthcare, because it's going to help our doctors to do exactly what is necessary for our bodies. Where are going to be when the communications will be completely different, higher quality, where all of the industrial production will be related and connected to artificial intelligence and management of big data. Are we going to be afraid of it? No. Because at the end of the day, it's a blessing, because that vision, that reality is going to create, is not going to reduce the number of workplaces in the world. In fact, it's going to increase it dramatically. Go back 30 years ago. We were all afraid of IT, saying, oh, computers will come, people will lose their jobs. In reality, it has created millions and millions of jobs, starting from India, China, everywhere in the world. So it's a new era, and I look at that very positively. The new era that we are going to embrace. Are we ready for that? I'm not sure, 100%. Can we be ready for that? I'm sure 100% that we can be ready for that, and we have to start being ready, and our focus there should be, I think, on education, preparing our children to the next phase, to the real 21st century. Because the 21st century didn't start at the year 2000. It's starting now. We are just at the gateway of 21st century. Now, what are going to be locomotives? Our moderator said, as the first locomotive is the human being. Indeed, as Mr. President Nazarbayev brought the data, the biggest 5 or maybe even 10 companies now in the world are not the natural resources companies. They are the ones that are working in IT sector and high tech, and are all focused into artificial intelligence. But the core of that change, are 2 factors. The first one, indeed, is the human being, the creative man. So what is going to drive the change is going to be an innovative person with the tools of the 4th industrial revolution, with the tools that will enable them any individual to be creative, even at home. Will change dramatically the way we run our business, will change dramatically the way we run our contribution to the economy. You can be creative working from home or a cafe from a Starbucks. But look at the biggest companies and where they were born. In a garage, in a cafe, here. In the dreams and the quality and innovation of individuals. So, 21st century, the driver, innovative work, creative work. And the second one, of course, indeed, the 4th industrial revolution. But in this case, I will argue that it's going to be another revolution. I have the feeling that this is not going to be the 4th industrial revolution that will be followed with the 5th one, but we're entering in a phase of rapid or revolutionary evolution. So the changes will not happen in 30 years' time. Another 30 years' time, we will be changing, the world will be changing every day, and we have to be ready for that. Now, to conclude, of course, it will be unfair if I will not speak about Armenia and the whole region. I think the innovative innovative type of the world that is opening the doors for us is opening doors for closer cooperation of everybody, especially the ones who are already working together. As it was said here, Armenia and Kazakhstan are countries. Armenia, Kazakhstan, and the Central Asia have been working together for ages, before Middle Ages and after, especially during the Silk Road and the sort of a renaissance of economic growth. Maybe the 21st century will be another renaissance, and the renaissance in a form that the politicians should be also those who know exactly the new tools of communications of the 21st century, because it will change the way we understand also democracy in the 21st century, and communicating not only from election to your public, but every day. And I think it will change also the way entertainment will collide and be integrated also with real-life economy and politics as well. So where does Armenia stand there? I think I look to the future of my state and nation with positive feelings and a vision that a small state, Republic of Armenia, that is the home of a global nation. There are as many Armenians living in Russia as in Armenia. The second biggest city Armenian is not, after Yerevan is Los Angeles. There's 1 million living in France. There are Armenians from Singapore up to Argentina. So it's a small nation, but a global, small state, but a global nation. So we are a part of 21st century, globally integrated, and I'm encouraging everybody to do so the same. Be globally integrated, creative, and resistant to the changes, because this world definitely is going to be a world that will change every day. One thing will be constant in our life, that it will change every day. So we have to be ready. And it all starts with the younger generation. It all starts with education. So with this positive note, Mr. Moderator, I will encourage our discussions to go in a form of how we are going to embrace the future and how we are going to prepare our children to the 21st century. And it starts with a vision. And we are in the center of a vision that started a couple of years ago. Thank you very much. Rahmet.
Your Excellency, President Sarkisyan, thank you for your meaningful message. I would now like to pass the floor to the Prime Minister of Georgia, Mamuka Bakhtadze. Mr. Bakhtadze has an outstanding record in civil service and large national corporations. Before his appointment to the current position, he served as the Finance Minister of Georgia and the head of Georgian Railway, JSC. I'm sure that his speech will give us fresh perspectives on some of the key points in our discussion today. The floor is yours.
Dear First President El-Bassi, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, distinguished guests, dear friends, it is my pleasure to have the opportunity to address this important gathering in the capital city of Kazakhstan, Nur-Sultan, that brings together global thinkers, prominent experts, and industry leaders to discuss the challenges, trends, and prospects of the global economy. Firstly, before I move to my speech, I would like to thank the first president of Kazakhstan and the founder of this forum, Mr. Nursultan Nazarbayev, a true visionary and one of the world's most prominent political leaders who has greatly contributed to peace, stability, and prosperity in the whole region. Огромное спасибо от имени грузинского народа.
Thanks a lot from the Georgian people to the first president of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Nazarbayev, for your invaluable contribution in strengthening Kazakh-Georgian partnership and relations. Thank you. Kazakhstan and Georgia are linked by the historical links which have been preserved and are being strengthened on a daily basis. Thank you very much for that.
Kazakhstan is one of the most important partners for my nation. We have great political and people-to-people relations, though in economic dimension we still see areas of huge opportunities to explore and consequently increase. Yesterday we signed several very important documents in order to further boost existing avenues in our bilateral relations. Most importantly, I would like to underline a roadmap agreement that was signed between our countries for increasing trade volumes during the next 3 years. We have huge opportunities in connectivity, energy, agriculture, trade and tourism, to name a few key directions. In these fields, we can form joint partnerships and build success stories with the know-how of each other. In Georgia-Kazakh relations, we have a great synergy. Georgia is strategically located between Europe and Asia, being a natural bridge between two continents, which serves 8 landlocked countries in its trade with the West. This advantage that Georgia can offer to Kazakhstan can supplement and support Kazakhstan to fully utilize its unique potential and logistical opportunities. Talking about connectivity, we have several very high-profile regional projects in transport and logistics. Georgia, one of the first countries to join Belt and Road Initiative, and plays an integral part in the revitalization of this ancient Silk Road idea. In this context, it is important to mention the so-called Middle Corridor project, which is being developed together with our friends and colleagues from China, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Georgia. This project will create enormous economic opportunities for the global economy as well. Our vision is to integrate Georgia in the global economy in the most efficient way possible. For that reason, we have a very comprehensive approach, which thereby helps us in becoming a real platform in a global trade. We are synchronically implementing reforms and initiatives with other regional countries in order to create stronger regional momentums. As I have said, we have an ambition to be a multidimensional hub in our region. Step by step, Georgia is becoming actually a hub for doing business, investments, finance, innovations, tourism, trade, and logistics. To continue, we are the only country in the region with free trade agreements with both European Union and China. We have several other trade deals being negotiated. As I speak here in front of you, my friends, and we are determined to keep this pace. When we are talking about being globalized, of course, it cannot happen without free trade. On this path, we pay special attention to strengthening transit infrastructure of the country, and we are developing not only traditional infrastructure such as roads and highways, but also are adding additional capacities to our railway and are constructing a deep sea port on western back of the Black Sea. In order to supplement our goals, we have conducted a long list of very important reforms that made Georgia a vibrant economy on the rise, and we are very happy to share this experience with our friends. Georgia is number 6 in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking. We are number 16 in Heritage Foundation Economic Freedom Index. To continue, Georgia is the 3rd lowest tax burden countries according to the World Bank. Moreover, according to IMF, Georgia will be the leader in terms of economic growth in our region. What we achieved with this kind of policy is the all-time high export volumes, and in just recent years, during 3 years, my friend, we could manage to decrease our current account deficit from 13% down to 6.8%. As you may all know, we are a country with 8.5 million visitors, while our total population is roughly 4 million, and you will agree that indeed that's a remarkable achievement. We are building a multidimensional business hub on the western coast of the Black Sea, and we have all the prerequisites to hit success, and we are very much determined to do so. Today, in this large auditorium, I see many leaders and innovators. For that reason, I would like to especially underline the following. In the era of disruptive technologies and fourth industrial revolution, investments and support of innovation is a must, and my personal undertaking is to build up an innovation-driven ecosystem in Georgia. In fact, we have been the first country in the world to introduce blockchain technologies in the public sector. But all would agree that innovations and future of our countries cannot be discussed without underlying the importance of the human capital. And today it was mentioned many times. In the globalized era, where the main motto is to think globally and act locally, younger generation with wider horizons and first-class knowledge will shape our future. For that very reason, I have introduced a very comprehensive education system reform, which I would characterize as the bravest step made by Georgia since our independence. This new education reform is, I would say, revolutionary, a real game-changing undertaking for our people and for our future generations, a real national idea for my country. Within the scope of this reform, we have already initiated a legislation under which 6% of GDP will be annually allocated to education, which is 25% of our budget. And most importantly, according to this very legislation, every government for the next decades to come will have the obligation to invest in the development of our human capital. In other words, people that advance our country to the heights that we envisage for our future generations. We have to understand that in today's competitive world, only the ones who have the open, prolific minds, information, and ability to think out of the box will be the ones to create the added value for our economies that we are so desperately in need nowadays. Dear colleagues and friends, sometimes we have to step away from a typical political agenda, step out, maybe out of our comfort zones, and run an extra mile in order to mark something that will have a long-lasting and epochal impact on our children and future generations. Isn't it why we are working so hard on existing challenges? For a better tomorrow, and most importantly, for upcoming generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Bakhtadze, for your fresh ideas. I'm pleased to turn now to the CEO and Chairman of the Executive Board of Sberbank, Hermann Gref. Many of us are familiar with the genuine professional and personal interest that Mr. Gref has shown in the areas of digitization, education, finance, and banking, which will play a key role in inspiring growth in the decades to come. Dear Mr. Gref, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to speak Russian. I think it will be more convenient for the audience. Большое спасибо,
Thank you very much, Mr. Nazarbayev, for this forum, for inviting me here. Indeed, this forum has grown into a very reputable platform, and for all of us speaking here, it is a great honor to speak, and for me it is a great challenge and honor to speak within such a remarkable company. And I would like to thank the President of the country and to the Prime Minister for the hospitality that we enjoy here. Thank you very much. I would like to say a couple of words about the topic that is stipulated as the main topic for the forum and for this plenary session. From the point of view of a big company that we are in our country, and probably in Kazakhstan, we are the second biggest bank from the point of view of assets. We consider this market as our native one, given that I was born in this country and I know these people pretty well. I would like to brief on three key issues. Number one, major companies and the employees of major companies are now facing they're not facing any simple choice. They don't have any choice. The only choice is to go through the continuous transformation, seeking for themselves, reinventing themselves. And today, the major companies have no choice but when to become. If you didn't start yesterday, today you are already late. And all major companies are now facing the choice of diversification of ecosystem creation. Ecosystem is the latest trend that creates the added value and causes challenge to any major company to enhance the productivity and to produce more added value. We started this path several years ago after we completed our digital transformation. aimed at establishing the digital platform. And as of today, we are quite big and diverse holding that is based on the technological platform. The platform which is based on the most state-of-the-art technologies that are operating on the clouds, the big data platform, big data processing platform, and the platform which is based on open source technology and memory computing and artificial intelligence, which was mentioned already today. Building platform is the consequence of the technological development, which is based on the artificial intelligence. And the artificial intelligence helped in creating absolutely new opportunities for all the companies and probably for the entire humanity, because there's probably no area that this technology would not revolutionary influence. They include public sector providing educational, health and other social services. And of course, this is true about all the sectors of business. In our bank, we put forward the objective of growing another bank from our ecosystem. This is not an easy task given our size. The net profit last year was approximately $13.5 billion, and building yet another company that would have a similar ecosystem with a similar profit amount is an ambitious goal. But as Einstein mentioned, it is the most important in the game to win, but you will never win if you haven't started playing. So if we make the first step, this will be the first step to success. We are present at the moment at the markets of education, health, e-commerce. We very much hope that e-commerce will become our second shoulder and second leg in relation to the financial services. We work a lot on at the so-called lifestyle market, and there are almost no or very little areas where we have no competences, and this in fact requires a lot of transformation of ourselves. We face the challenge that we have to drastically change the quality of human capital, starting from ourselves. We are all born from banks. We are all bankers, and we started building our plans as to how to transform our culture, our mentality and skills, so that we could become adequate to the contemporary activities. We built together a number of partnership programs with the most advanced educational institutions, such as Stanford University, where we implement annual programs for 40 top management staff, where they get retrained to get new qualifications. London School of Business, INSEAD. With INSEAD, our program is more than the entire INSEAD curriculum. On an annual basis, during the 11-month courses, we retrain 500 of our staff. The 11th-month program would allow changing the culture and mentality of the top management of the banks to get prepared to the new objectives that we set forward for them. On an annual basis, in our corporate universities that we invested hundreds of millions of dollars, we retrain about 35,000 of our managers on an annual basis. And for us, the notion of lifelong learning is no longer a theory. This is something that we do on a daily practical basis. The second thing that we face is that we need a huge inflow of staff. We have 36,000 IT staff, and annually we employ 50,000 more staff, and out of them around 7,000 to 8,000 people are IT staff. It turned out that our educational system is not prepared to provide so many quality specialists to us, and we had to reach the level of the universities, and we signed partnership agreements with 21 universities whereby we reviewed and revisited the curricula for the specialists that we need, and during the last 3 years we have rolling up the quality and quantity training of our specialists that we require. And this turned out to be insufficient. We studied globally, and 2 years ago we signed an agreement with the Paris school number 42, and we started school number 21 in Moscow, where we enroll 1,500 students that will graduate 1,000 students in programming, engineers that would go through the 21 levels of training with blockchain and all the state-of-the-art technologies. This year we start another school of the same capacity, and we put forward the objective of educate up to 5,000 specialists per year that would be adequate to our tasks. The third level of staff training is that we saw that there are problems in our school education. Together with the Higher School of Economics, we carried out a study, and we were extremely surprised with the outcomes. 88% of the school children said that they are not happy with the textbooks, they don't want to read them because they are dull. 67% of teachers and school children quoted that they're not happy about training and education, and the process of education turned out to be very dull for them. 67% of students stressed that there is no sense, there's a deficit of sense, and some teachers complained about professional fatigueness, and this is in the background of the fact that the schools do not provide with the soft and digital skills, which are the key skills. Our schools are more focused on the knowledge base, but not on the skills. 3 years ago, therefore, we started to establish the school platform, and this year, from the 1st of September, we launched this school platform based on the personified education. It is difficult yet to say whether the project is going to be successful, but we contribute a lot of our knowledge, artificial intelligence, and all our knowledge and skills in managerial areas that are extremely important for the schools, because frankly at schools these managerial skills are very low.
We hope very much that our coming there as a large company will enable the progress in these schools, and they will reach a new level. For the time being, we are the only company which has already invested a lot of money into this platform. We have 45,000 schools in Russia, and we would like to transfer at least 1,000 schools to this new platform, which is mainly specializing in the development of soft skills and communication skills, IT skills, etc. Therefore, we will try to fill the gaps which were indicated by our teachers and students. We also have the Kazakhstani partners. ERG company is also helping us to invest in this project, and I have to state that the experience that we are accumulating now in Russia, we are going to implement in Kazakhstan. Thank you very much for this partnership. And the last point is that large companies and cities, I do agree, fully agree, that metropolis will actually predetermine the life in the future. And our main partner in this project is the city of Moscow, and we visited a lot of various cities in China and found a lot of advanced cities there, in the USA, in Europe as well. But I can tell you that Moscow is the most advanced city in the world now, and we try to implement all our new technology skills in the city of Moscow. First and foremost, AI was transferred to the city of Moscow, and additionally, after a successful transformation of various areas of urban life will be replicated all over the country. And the computer vision, for example, and one of our daughter companies is the world leader in computer vision, and whatever is actually related to the computer speech recognition, we are the leaders in the country, and they have already been implemented in Moscow. And I can tell you that the labor productivity in Moscow has drastically increased, and the lifestyle of Muscovites changed as well, and therefore 80% of the available city services can be obtained online. Jointly with the city of Moscow, we established a specialized group which is trying to establish a universal platform that will easily transform the achievements already available in Moscow, be replicated and be available for other cities of Russia. And I can tell you that this experience is really very nice. It has a lot of very interesting products, which is actually increasing the role of every citizen of the city, every resident of the city. It is very easy and very simple, without any bureaucracy. You can obtain a great number of various government services, and what really matters, what is really very important, that it brings a lot of satisfaction to the residents of this city. And the last thing that I would like to mention here is that the partnership, which was mentioned by Nursultan Abishevich, the partnership in the modern world is based on the highest principle of emotional intelligence and cooperation. And I think that it is unavoidable. We have to learn before we start teaching somebody, before we start training our soft skills in the future generation. This new world without collaboration and support is simply impossible. It is impossible without interaction on a government level, inside the government, interaction between private businesses and governments. And I think that it has to be recognized that unfortunately we all are students. We all have to learn how to achieve it. And we have to be guided by the principle that has been expressed by Mahatma Gandhi in due time. He said that you have to live as if you're going to die tomorrow. And you have to learn as if you are going to live eternally. And I believe that it's really a very good message for all of us, so that every one of us will try to transform, to improve the environment around you and the space in which you live into something better by achieving progress and improving well-being of all the people who live in our countries and work in our companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gref, for your thoughtful remarks. Our next speaker is Risto Silasma, Chair of the Board of Directors of Nokia Corporation. Many of us who have been following the history of the development of Nokia may recall how the company underwent a major reinvention under the leadership of Mr. Silasma. He transformed Nokia on the verge of bankruptcy into a global technological player. After Mr. Silasma became the head of Nokia, the company value grew more than 10 times. It's an illustrative case of inspiring growth, and I'm happy to pass the floor to its author.
Your Excellency, First President Nazarbayev, Mr. President, Prime Minister, Vice Premier, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. If you would have 50 years ago known of all the great innovation we now take for granted, such as microprocessors, the internet, online universities, solar energy cells, digital photography, search engines, fast communication networks, global navigation systems, and so forth, what would have been your prediction on our growth prospect? Would any one of us have predicted that all of this great technology will guide us to an era of anything but truly explosive economic productivity growth? While we certainly have witnessed a global transformation from the economic science perspective, the outcome surprisingly is quite different and is widely known as the Solow's paradox. Mr. Solow said famously that the digital revolution can be seen everywhere but in the productivity numbers. And this has proven to be the case also in the past 15 years, as productivity growth in most of the world's wealthiest countries has been somewhat surprisingly depressing. And what is even more striking, the pace of what economists call total factor productivity, the metric that shows us the contributions of innovation and technology, has been particularly grim. So even with all the technologies we have invented, we have not been able to increase our productivity at the rate equal to the previous industrial revolutions. Because future is always more important than the past, we therefore must ask a more important question, and that is, what can we do to avoid continuing the same trend? How can we harness the obvious productivity opportunities for the benefit of everyone? What can we, as political and business leaders, do right now to maximize the positive effects of artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, nanotechnology, and quantum computing? One key starting point for a better future is to make the distinction between the digital and analog sections of economic activity. Studies show that in the United States, for example, productivity growth in the non-digital part of the economy, which accounts for a total of 70% of the US economy, has been slow, a mere 0.7%, while the digitalized portion of the economy has shown high productivity growth of 2.7% annually. The answer to Solow's paradox would therefore seem to be that we have only managed to digitalize less than a third of economic value creation, and that is why we are lagging behind the previous industrial revolutions in productivity growth. The reason why we have only digitalized such a relatively small portion of our economies has not been because of unwillingness. We have simply lacked certain key technologies. Based on research by Nokia Bell Labs, we foresee the beginning of a new era of productivity growth. With the dawn of 5G networks and low-cost, high-performance computing infrastructure, we see great opportunity for the traditional industries, such as manufacturing, construction, mining, utilities, and healthcare, to increase their productivity. The development will vary by region, as well as the timing of that development. But for example, in the United States, we project a productivity jump to occur in the 2028-2033 timeframe, and our prediction is that this will increase the US GDP with multiple trillions of dollars before 2040. In mining, one of the many sectors where Kazakhstan is one of the leaders, Deloitte has estimated that the companies that embrace the digital mine concept stand to see a productivity increase of 10 to 20%. This is fully in line with our own experiences automating our own factories. We are seeing a true digital transformation of what we know as the traditional industries. This obviously will not happen by itself. First of all, we need to defend our global multilateral trading system, since if we create barriers preventing us from trading with one another, both the dispersion of the new technologies as well as our ability to spread the benefits via trade will be compromised. While avoiding handicapping ourselves, we will need to ensure investment in the modern infrastructure and encourage the development by creating smart policy frameworks. And above all, we face a huge training and education challenge. We need to start thinking about this from a new perspective. I was very impressed by what Sberbank has done. Along those same lines, we in Nokia decided to train not just our engineers or our management in machine learning, but we decided to train every single one of our 100,000 employees, every single receptionist, janitor, secretary, up to the CEO. And there is a level of urgency in all of this. If you think change is faster today than it has ever been before, I believe you are completely correct, but you're still taking the wrong perspective. You should rather think change will never again be as slow as it is today. Therefore, acting today gives you exponentially more time to achieve results than if you wait until tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silesma, for your thoughtful insights. Last, but by far not least, we have a prominent expert, Nobel Prize laureate in economic sciences, Dr. Paul Romer. Many of us recall Dr. Romer's model, which states that the main factor in economic growth is capital investment into research and development and human capital. Dr. Romer used to serve as the chief economist of the World Bank and as a fellow of the U.S. National Bureau of Economic Research. Incorporating his experience as an economist from academic, scientific, and practical viewpoints, Dr. Romer is perfectly positioned to consider the matters of inspiring growth from different angles. Dr. Romer, the floor is yours.
The world has entered a new era in which we, the people in this room, the people on this stage, and our counterparts throughout the world, have to confront and come to terms with a fundamental fact. There is no agreement about the optimal or appropriate or right or correct role for the government in managing, guiding the economy. And if there were agreement about that role now, we would not be in agreement about what it should be in the future, because it will be different in the future. Developments like technology will force us to make adjustments. The world made great progress in the years from 1980 to about 2008. Great progress in the sense of reducing the huge gaps that separated income per capita in various nations. And we made that progress partly because we adopted a diplomatic fiction that we did agree on the right role for government. It was this vision of the minimal state. And even if many countries who were joining a liberal economic trading system based on this vision of the minimal state were not yet relying on a minimal state, we pretended that it was an inevitable consequence of development growth, increases in income, that every nation would converge to the minimal state. As one of our early presidents, John Adams, once wrote, "Facts are stubborn things." And the fact that we can no longer ignore is that it is not true that with growth and development, we see this convergence to the minimal state. And this fact is now surfaced in a very worrisome and confrontational way in the dispute about trade between the United States and China. So debate and dispute will be an inevitable part of coming to terms with our lack of certainty about the right role for the government. If you think about the other forces that made possible this period of rapid convergence, rapid closing of gaps between nations, Another crucial one was urbanization. Urbanization, too, brings to the forefront this uncomfortable fact about the right role for the government. I've found it, as I've studied urbanization, I found it a surprise as a University of Chicago trained economist to realize that I now believe in government planning, and government planning that comes first before market activity. But if you look at the facts of urbanization, these stubborn facts, you can't conclude anything else. There's debate about how much planning, how extensive, and the sequencing of planning in an urban area. But there's no coherent position of laissez-faire, that you just let urbanization take place with no plan, no provision for the public space that provides for connectivity. So when we confront the importance of urbanization and its critical role in the next decades as the process continues to unfold, we have to be clear-eyed about the importance of good government in planning for successful urbanization. So in addition to globalization built on a trading system that relied on this fiction of convergence to the minimal state, and based on, so we had the benefit of globalization, we had the benefit of urbanization, which, by the way, is well exemplified by the city in which we are now meeting, and it is for that reason it's a great pleasure for me finally to come to this forum. But it's true that in addition to globalization and urbanization, technological change has driven convergence where nations catch up and continues to drive improvements in standards of living in the wealthiest countries. The theory that I introduced about technological change was easy to incorporate in the midst of this kind of fiction about the minimal state, because it was a theory about how technology actually comes from market incentives. But at this point, we're now seeing that the power of technology, that the possibilities that it creates, is driving us to a point where firms can be so powerful that governments can't any longer make and enforce law that firms have to comply with. So we're seeing not only developing countries who are becoming more vocal, or the rapidly growing catch-up nations who are becoming more vocal about a different vision for the government in guiding their nations, but we're seeing new voices that are surfacing in the countries at the technology frontier, new voices that are calling for a government which is narrow, to be sure. There has been convergence on this notion of a government which is narrow in the tasks it takes on, so it leaves room for the decentralized activity of the market to handle the other tasks, but which, although narrow, is strong enough so that the people in a nation can be certain that the nation will make laws and enforce those laws and thereby make sure that these companies do what's best for everyone, not just what's best for the few. Now, we see many signs. But before I go on, let me just say that this diplomatic fiction, which had its advantages, had a cost. It suppressed a disagreement that we're going to have to resolve, and it also left room for a campaign of honestly, of propaganda, of ideologically driven propaganda about the benefit from the minimal state. And this needs to be confronted with the just pragmatic facts that we're now confronted with. There's lots of evidence that states that have been captured by, and polities that have been captured by this propaganda, have governments that aren't doing their job. They're not coping with the challenge of climate change. This is not a technical problem. We know how to solve this problem. It's just like the problem of the ozone hole. The problem here is that we can't get national governments to adopt policies that will be good for everyone. It isn't even a problem of international cooperation. It's a problem of national governments that can't look at the facts and then make a decision. We see many countries where there's a growing sense of a failure of inclusion for everyone in the nation in the benefits that technology and the market can offer. Again, this is not a technical problem. This has been solved. We see nations, some of the Scandinavian nations, for example, who have managed, in the face of rapid technological change, to maintain inclusion, to maintain a high level of intergenerational economic mobility. So once again, we have a problem not of how to do it, but of polities where people want the government to do something, yet we can't get our system to confront the facts, make a decision, and move forward. But even more strikingly right now, we see instances with the financial sector. So why did I stop in 2008? The financial crisis. So we see in the financial sector firms that are not just too big to fail, but they're too big to regulate. And it's, I think, a widely shared view that we will face another financial crisis because the governments are not strong enough to enforce laws that would protect us from the dangers of the financial sector. In the traditional sector of aviation safety, we've had a striking recent instance of a company in the United States which was able to neuter a system of regulation which worked very well to protect aviation safety. I'm on the record as saying the US system of the FAA and the NTSB is the regulatory solution we need in the financial sector because it worked so well. Well, it turns out it hasn't been working so well recently. Finally, we have these new digital platforms that have accumulated enormous powers to spy on people that we would never have let a government have, but which the private sector has exploited and is using for its own benefit to make a profit. Many people are not happy with this new arrangement, and they're not happy with the risks from the financial sector. They're clamoring for more inclusion in their nations. So it's not just the developing world, but it's also many people in the richest countries who are saying they want a government which is strong enough to make law that protects the interests of the common shared interests and enforces that law. And the biggest risk I think we face in the world right now is that if we can't deliver government which is narrow but strong in the sense that it makes and enforces the law, this popular demand will shift to a support for a strong leader instead of a strong nation. And we may lose the advantages of the rule of law. So let me just end on a note of optimism. I always thought of myself as the most optimistic economist I knew. Over time, humans have made enormous progress partly because we learned how to cooperate with more and more people like us, and we learned how to harvest the power of a form of cooperation known as science. My predecessor at the World Bank, Justin Lin, has a great paper pointing to the enormous disruptive effect of the emergence of science in changing relationships between the nations of the world and in opening up these huge gaps between nations that we're now finally starting to close. Science gives us the ability to make new discoveries, to make new things possible, but it also gives us the crucial ability to see the negative side effects that almost always accompany new possibilities. When we started urbanizing, Life expectancy went down. We got sicker because of density. But science and then governments which acted on facts prevented disease, instituted measures of public health, and we got the benefits of urbanization without the harms. Science created this system where some countries surged ahead first and had enormous power because they exploited it first. But science has also given us the tools to think through how do we find a system that lets everyone catch up. If we stick to this approach of science and if we pay attention to the facts, we can find a way to have a government which is strong enough to get the power of digital technology, the power of complex systems like aviation has been exploiting. We can get those benefits and yet still maintain our commitment to the making law and enforcing law in a way that everyone has to comply with and which will truly serve the common interest. So we can continue to make progress, but it will be a challenge, and we're entering a period where recovering from this fiction that the solution is the minimal state will take some work, and it'll be contentious, but we'll get through it, and progress will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Romer, for your comprehensive overview. Your Excellencies, dear panelists, we're a little behind schedule, but I would still like to ask a couple of questions. Now, you may answer from your seats, but please be as short as possible. Now, Your Excellency, Mr. First President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Yelbaza Nursultan Nazarbayev, you have ruled the country since the very beginning, since independence. The period of your presidency is the first and the most meaningful chapter in the history of modern Kazakhstan. You expressed a steady political will that is fundamental to many strategic undertakings of your country. Your Excellency, 2 months ago, you announced your decision to resign from the post of President of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Presidential elections are only 3 weeks away. How do you see the post-electoral period in Kazakhstan? How will the new political context affect the socio-economic development of the country?
Thank you very much for this question. I would be pleased to take it. I follow the principle that the state can achieve success. I mean, the people can achieve success when the leader and the nation understand each other and they are together. And all the programs and ideas that are developed are fully supported by the people. This is what happened in our country, and I guess our policy was right. And during all these years, we worked closely together. I participated in the 5 elections, and it has never been the case that less than 85% of electorate voted for me. And I think that through this stability and mutual understanding helped us achieving success. And this is confirmed by all the experts and our neighbors. The follow-up transformation, quiet, without any political stress, will be, in my view, the proper way out. Though my mandate was long enough to continue, and I could again initiate my candidacy, and I could have been elected again. And however, the new changes were required, and a new generation, a new team was required, and I hope that the new team and the new generation will bring their new innovations and new thoughts and new ideas, and this is what the changes are for. And we are the young country, and we have the strategical programs. Kazakhstan is rich in mineral resources, oil and gas, all types of metals, 53 elements of Mendeleev's table, and therefore in the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan was used as the supplier of raw materials to other regions. No manufacturing was carried out here. And the one-sided economy resulted in the fact that when the commodities fell in price, we turned out to be in the hardship. However, when we had good prices, I established the national fund, oil fund, and this helped us diversifying our economy. And as of today, the overall international reserves of the country are more than $90 billion for 18 million people. It is quite a huge amount, which is more than 40% of our GDP. As a result, we launched the industrial program to develop the manufacturing sector. And this manufacturing sector has been growing 20% per annum. And during the 6 years, we built 1,300 new industries with absolute new competences, new jobs, new salaries and wages. This is number one. The second program was the infrastructure program. We got connected to the Silkway program. Kazakhstan is a landlocked country, and the only way out was to build transit capacities. And these capacities were built. We spent $30 billion and we built the highway network all over Kazakhstan. Our country is the 9th country in the world by territory, and all the roads or highways were headed towards Russia, and the good quality roads were not available. Now we established a network of highways in Kazakhstan, and now we are working on the reconstruction of the domestic roads. And we are not only talking about highways. We built 14,000 kilometers of highways, railways, international airports in all major cities, 2 seaports at Caspian and at the border with China, the dry port Khogos. We have a terminal in the Pacific, and this, as of today, containers grow twice every year via Azerbaijan to Georgia and Turkey and to Europe. This is one route. Via China, from China, Kazakhstan to Russia is the second route, and China, Kazakhstan via Iran and Persian Gulf is the third route. That is, we established all those routes, and they all bring good dividends to us. Last year we earned $1.5 billion. By 2020 we plan to earn up to $5 billion per year. And this is due to our friendly neighborly relations with PRC, as the Prime Minister mentioned, helped us developing a program of creating a network of the industries, 55 industries that we need state-of-the-art. $27 billion are going to be invested. These are going to be joint ventures that will be owned mostly by Kazakhstan along the Silkway to enhance processing. We have oil, gas, metals. By the way, we reached the peak of 90 million tons of oil production. Very soon we will produce 100 million tons. That is, we will become a top 10 oil producing country. We are now developing petrochemistry that will require a lot of investments in the west of Kazakhstan. And secondly, agriculture. Kazakhstan has the vast territory, 40 million of arable land, 180 million hectares of pastures, using which we can create organic food. We are aware that we have to enhance the consumption, and today it's Russia and Kazakhstan who inherited with this land, and this would produce a lot of effect. We also have social program of Kazakhstan for affordable housing for people with 20% contribution for 20 years maturity, so that the housing is becoming affordable. This program is being implemented. A lot was absolutely correctly mentioned about the human resources, and in the most hardship years in 1993, when we didn't have much money, we started to send young people to the best universities of the world. So far we have 12,000 graduates, and 20,000 more people are being studying. We have established the 20 intellectual schools with the best students. That is, we not only established a new economy, a new country, and built the new capital city, we also educated the new generation. And we have to continue that. We have to make the follow-up steps. Everything that we are saying today, the 21st century, innovations and science and so on. But inside the country, we have to do practical things. We have to improve life of people. The further the better. And the task of the new team would be to follow up on what we have started. The 2050 strategy is stating that we have to become a top 30 developed countries in the world, and we are going towards that objective steadily, and for that we have all the necessary programs and strategies, we have funding sufficient for that, we have staff prepared for that, and this is going to be the aim of the new team of the government and the new leadership. You see, I'm creating some inconveniences to the speakers. You have to say the first president first, and then you have to name the president and so on. I think this is the situation of duality will not last any longer. We have only one president, and he's going to be the leader, and we'll work to support him.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. Now, Madame Lagarde, the second is for you. In your address to the plenary, you spoke of the importance of Kazakhstan and other countries in the region implementing policies to promote growth, more inclusive growth. You mentioned governance. Could you elaborate on that? And what about the cost in all these programs?
I'll try to be super brief. For growth to be sustainable and inclusive, you need fiscal sustainability, you need financial sanity, you need women empowerment, and you need good governance. Focusing on good governance. If any country, anywhere in the world, and in this region in particular, wants to deliver on all the goods and the welfare and the innovation and the productivity that have been discussed today, that state, however minimal or maximal it is, will need strong fiscal revenue, will need efficient spending, will need banks that are reliable and compliant, and will need a business environment that is safe and business friendly. All of that is predicated on good governance and no corruption. That's the reason why we think that good governance is critically important.
Right. Thank you very much. Now, one final question, and I ask the same question to Mr. Silasma, Mr. Greff, and Dr. Romer. We've heard a lot about growth perspectives, growth opportunities today. I would like to know from you, what do you see as the biggest growth risks today in the global economic environment? Who wants to start? Dr. Romer.
I'll reiterate my point, which is I think the biggest risk is governments that are too weak, and then a rejection of systems like the rule of law, which we've built centuries, we've been investing in for centuries. So, I think if you listen to what Madame Lagarde said, I don't think the minimal state really fits if we're going to have good banks and all the other things. So we just have to come to terms with, to be sure, well-governed governments, but governments that are strong enough to do the things we need them to do.
I can say that we're suffering a lot from the geopolitical tensions. It's a little bit different, but I think it's the most important questions for the business in the whole world, not only for our region.
I call myself a paranoid optimist, so I can see two sides to this question. On one hand, we can definitely easily shoot ourselves in the leg and prevent all the positive things that we are after. And there are multiple ways, and many of them have been mentioned here. One that I talked about in my address was the globalization process, the multilateral rule-based system we have. If we severely handicap that, we are in trouble. But then on the other hand, there are things that we have to do to enable the progress and the benefits that we have discussed. And I'll only mention one which I also mentioned before, and that's the educational challenge. I do deeply believe that technology will be driving much of the prosperity and other benefits that we have almost in our hands today, but that will require the leaders to understand what the technology holds, to create the right regulation, to create the right legislation. It requires all of our leaders to understand this technology. And we somehow are often unable to study this new technology. Especially people in leadership positions, they feel that they are above going back to school. We don't really have to understand, for example, machine learning. It's enough that our subordinates understand it. But if we have this wrong way of looking at it, then we will be leading our companies and our governments and our organizations astray. So educational challenge across the hierarchy in different organizations.
All right, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that does it for us today. Looking at my watch, I'm just amazed. I thank each and every one of you on the panel. Thank you for very meaningful and inspiring contributions. Thank you for all of you. You were a great audience, sticking with us until the very end, although we're playing in overtime right now. Thank you so much. I wish you all inspiring and fruitful discussions over the next 2 days. And again, please give a big round of applause for our panel today. Thank you very much.